the pantheon. In 125 AD, as the empire reaches its peak, a high point in terms of culture, political power and technology, the Emperor Hadrian builds one of Rome's greatest monuments.
Here we are in the Pantheon, the greatest of all Roman domes. It's a culmination of their building technology using unreinforced concrete, and the whole space measures 150 foot wide and it's 150 foot tall. So it's a fantastic spatial experience.
The Pantheon is a mystery. That's its attraction. You cannot classify it. It doesn't look like anything you've ever seen. You go into it and the space is a rush that sweeps you up into it, and that's its fascination.
This building has been in continuous use for 1900 years, 1400 of them as a Catholic church. But the reason for its original construction, the reason why engineers without access to cranes or steel could even think of raising a dome which weighs 5,000 tons, is unclear.
One of the mysteries of the Pantheon is what it was used for. We don't know if it was a shrine for all the gods, as is suggested by its name. We do know that Hadrian held court in the Pantheon, and I always think that it's a wonderful emblem of him, because I see him in the center of the Pantheon, but he is the spotlighted one, and he's the one who's giving the decisions. And so the building contributed to the force of the decisions that the emperor was making.
Its design is a work of genius.
This 150-foot space is held up by a 20-foot thick drum. Inside there are actual hidden voids right the way within the structure, like a honeycomb, and they are lightening the structure.
Putting up a structure like this is about balancing strength and weight. The walls of the drum need to be 20 feet thick, but the danger is that when the dome is placed on top, the combined weight will cause a collapse. The builders lighten the walls by making voids inside them, and when it comes to the dome, they use all their ingenuity. By this point in Rome's history, its engineers have been experimenting with concrete for more than 300 years. They know how to alter its mix so the higher it is, the lighter the load will get.
You start from solid travertine aggregate, which is the heavy and compact material, working up through tough brick and finally pumice. So right at the top we have the lightest of all possible material, lighter than water, and then finally the oculus, which is actually, of course, pure air.
The key to its stability is a ring of stone at the dome's highest point. It's the focus of all the weight. Each section of the vaulting is pushing on this ring, and the equal forces on all sides cancel each other out. It's a neat, practical solution, but it also creates a tremendous visual effect. On a clear day, the sun shines like a spotlight into the space below.
The oculus of the Pantheon could be said to just be an engineering necessity. But the oculus also is very much in fitting with the use of the Pantheon as a place for the emperor to give judgment. Romans believed that the gods should see when they were making judgment, that they should be doing it in the open air. And so the oculus allows, if you will, all the gods to look in and know what is going on in the Pantheon.
And yet it still holds its secrets. Today, visitors can be so keen to see inside the Pantheon that they forget the building's exterior.
The feat of building the dome is matched out here in the portico by another constructional enterprise of almost equal magnificence.
To Mark Wilson Jones, it's only by looking closely at this part of the structure, its vast columned entrances, that you really understand what the Pantheon means.
Here we have 16 sumptuous Corinthian columns, but it's when we look at the shafts that we see something really astounding. They're 5 foot wide, 40 foot tall, but that means 50 tons each. But when we look at the details of this part of the building, there's some singular features that lead us to believe that the Roman building machine may have hit its uppermost limits.
He sees signs that the builders had reached as far as they could go. This may be the greatest building, made by the greatest engineers, of the greatest empire in the ancient world. Wilson Jones sees both Rome's peak and perhaps the beginning of its decline. From these extraordinary heights, there is only one way: down. In the 2nd century AD, under the Emperor Hadrian, the Roman Empire covers more land, rules more people, and enjoys more wealth than ever before. This is the climate in which the Pantheon is built, the extraordinary product of an extraordinary time. It's a cylindrical chamber, the height of a 7-story office block, topped on what is still the largest unsupported concrete dome anywhere in the world. At its front, the rectangular portico, 16 columns, each one 40 feet tall and carved from a single piece of Egyptian granite weighing over 80 tons. It's tempting to see the Pantheon as an expression of Roman dominance. Its unchallenged mastery of the ancient world. The problem is, this building is not perfect.
This is the Pantheon. It's one of the most impressive things that the Romans built from the ancient world, and it's one of the best preserved monuments from antiquity. But take a look at the portico up there. Above it is the start of another one, and that doesn't make any sense.
It's the point where the column's rectangular entrance meets the drum of the main building. Above the line of the V-shaped roof, there's another joint. It's as if they intended to build the entrance even higher, but then thought better of it.
Lots of people have been trying to get an explanation for this phenomenon. It's puzzled architects since the 15th century. It's a strange puzzle, but it seems to have been begun all as part of one unified project, and then presumably something went wrong.
Has ancient Roman technology finally hit its limit? After centuries of improvement and innovation, has the builders' ambition outstripped their ability? This building was the product of a massive operation. The columns shipped all the way from Alexandria. And here Mark Wilson Jones believes he spotted the weak link.
You know, that's a long sea voyage. We know that there's plenty of shipwrecks with columns, in fact, at the bottom of the Mediterranean. This is the kind of scenario that we could expect.
He believes that Hadrian's architects were faced with a difficult choice.
And then what would happen? I think the instruction must have come down from on high that the building needs to be completed, even if they have to have second best and make recourse to a set of 40-foot shafts that they could divert from another project.
Using this theory as a basis, it is possible now to reconstruct the Pantheon, Rome's greatest building, as it was originally planned.
Then the design, magically everything rises up. The main portico would have been as high as the second pediment. So then, instead of this rather enigmatic building, we would have a much more perfect unified project.
Instead, they made a practical, pragmatic choice, and this is the building that we have today. What the men who built the Pantheon could not possibly have known is that this is a one-off. In them, at that moment, Rome had some of the best engineers in the history of the ancient world. It would never again come this close to perfection.
This is Roman construction near the apogee of its powers. They certainly couldn't have done it 100 years later, that's for sure.